Hi everyone, this is Mario Comics, but this is from early in the year. I went to an event at an Apple store where they had the director, or one of the directors of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, doing a little Q&A. Unfortunately, I had to cut it off because one of the staff members told me they couldn't record anymore. But here's something from the event.
Yeah, you were working on this film for 3 years. Talk a little bit about the fact that every day you were getting up and you're going to work on a film with Miles, with Peter, with Gwen. Was it exciting each day going into the office to work on that? Was there ever any like trepidation about like, are people going to connect with these characters? Like, talk about going through that every day for 3 years.
Yeah, it was always exciting because the potential of the character was there, the potential of the story and the world was there from the beginning. Phil had written, from the very earliest days, he had written a treatment that really had the tone and the spirit that we would end up trying to hold on through the whole movie. So just trying to shoot for that because it was so fresh and it felt so emotional and real, and that became the blueprint for everything we did in the movie. So people ask, what's it like to work on a movie with 3 directors? And in our case, we had such a clear target that even though maybe sometimes we disagreed over, the solution to a problem or thought, well, we should make a left turn here instead of a right turn, the destination was never in doubt. So, as tough as it got sometimes, and it got tough, it was not always fun, but the vision at the end of the tunnel was clear enough that you kind of like, even when you wanted to quit, you were like, you know what, this is going to be really good if I can just like pull it together and keep going.
Yeah. Well, when I saw it for the first time in the theaters, it took my brain a minute to click into the animation because it was so different and boundary pushing that I kind of had to process it for a second.
I think in our heart of hearts, we wanted to do something fresh and different, and I think we wanted to be as different as possible, honestly. Number one, from the other Spider-Man movies, but also, from animated movies in general, they've gotten to this state where the technology has taken the medium so far that for big studio animated films, there's like a level of polish and perfection that it can deliver everything you want from one of those movies, but we're at the stage where it's like, well, there's gotta be something different and something new, and us and a lot of people in the industry were aching for something that was gonna break those boundaries, and the making of this movie, we just ended up at a studio that was ready to let creators that they trusted take that leap and push the whole machinery forward.
What I find especially cool is now that it's out on digital and will be out on DVD and Blu-ray on March 19th, it's going to be in all of y'all's hands. So all of you that love animation will really get in the weeds and pick it apart and look at all the innovative things that are happening with it. And I've already seen some of that happen with how the characters interact with other props and things are even existing sort of outside of frame that are influencing it. And on that note, well, we have a clip, we have something to show you guys. That's right, yes. So let's throw it to this and take a look at behind the scenes of Into the Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse has a really awesome look. State-of-the-art 3D animation.
The movie's like a comic book that's come to life.
Like nothing audiences have seen before.
Hey there! This was a chance to push the medium of animation to a place that hasn't gone before.
I mean, it was a real love letter to comic books. I wanted you to be able to freeze any frame and it looked like a work of art, something that might have been done by hand.
We're gonna make it so different, we're gonna make it so unique. The battle cry was go too far.
It all comes back to wanting the movie to feel like we did when we were in a comic shop as kids.
Feeling Chris, once they came on board, you just know that they're gonna get inventive.
It can't be that easy.
There have been a lot of movies based on comic books, but none of them have felt like you could walk into a comic book and have it surround you and feel like you were inside of a living painting.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller are crazy funny. They're crazy ambitious.
They gave us this task and also this fuel to really challenge ourselves.
And they very much, helped create an environment that allowed a lot of the people in this movie to try things that they might have always dreamed of trying, but had never been given the platform.
It does look cool though, right?
The mixture of 2D animation and 3D animation are obviously meant to evoke comic books, the source material that Spider-Man comes from.
The idea that it isn't just CG animation, but that we're actually hand drawing on top of the CG is a brand new idea.
Using illustration and hand-drawn imagery from the old days of animation was something we wanted to infuse our movie with, because that's how comic books are made.
And to incorporate that all together in animation, but comic book melted together form. It was a new challenge for us.
Every single frame of a comic book really expresses as much story as it could in one frame. There's a dynamism and a sort of a strength and a boldness to the way comics are presented to you. And so we tried to do that in our animation.
We did a lot of animation testing, and we found out pretty early on that in order to capture the spirit of the comic books, we'd animate on twos. And so what that means is in a traditional animation where you would see every frame change, sometimes we would hold frames for 2 or 3 frames.
When there's 24 frames a second, instead of doing all 24, you do 12, and the mind fills in the gaps between them. It makes it feel more graphic. There is a clarity and a crispness in that, so we latched into that as an aesthetic that I think made it feel more like a comic book.
Pay attention! Storyboards and comic books are very similar. We'll look back and go, okay, where can we do multi-panel here, or do like the sound effect that gives somebody's punching.
That's new.
We actually use literal panelization on the screen, like a split screen, dividing it to 2, 3, 4 panels on screen. It's a pretty neat device because you can relay a lot of information in just one shot, technically, with multiple shots happening within that.
So it completely can change up the pacing of the sequence, give you a special impact for when they're fighting, or slow it down.
If you are a character who lives inside a comic book, the world would look like it's made out of art. And I wanted the audience to experience that art.
We had to be super considerate when using text and any of those sort of graphic elements on screen as you'd see in a comic book. It really packed a punch.
Text on screen, it's all meant to be expressive. So we had to heighten your engagement with the story, or it didn't live in the movie.
Comic books, like jazz, it's an American art. Today, the influence of comics and the artistry is so big. Time to use it.
We were really searching for a visual language that supported the way the movement made you feel.
There have been other Spider-Man movies, great Spider-Man movies. We have to live up to that legacy.
We all felt like we would never get another chance to push a movie in this direction.
Every time we said, make it crazier, push it farther, Sony ImageWorks Animation would say, that's going to be really difficult, but that's really exciting.
I would come into work every day excited to see what new thing we were going to invent.
You don't get to make that many of these things, so you want them to be as unique as possible.
Figured, let's leave it all on the field.
Is that motto of go too far, is that now your working motto? Is that going to be something you carry forward?
I'm probably going to do it tonight, so get ready, everybody. It's going to be embarrassing, but it might lead to something good.
Well, obviously, we're in Brooklyn. Miles is from Brooklyn, and there's another important figure that was from Brooklyn, or at least played for the Brooklyn Dodgers, Jackie Robinson. Talk about his connection to Spider-Verse.
Number 42. The number 42 pops up in a couple of places in the movie. We snuck it in like little places, but it's on the spider that bites him. It's on the lottery ball that's really quick in the beginning of the movie. You see some lottery balls bouncing around. That's where Miles got into Vision's Academy. He won the lottery. That's number 42, and it's something Brian Michael Bendis, who created Miles and created the whole story. It's something he had in the original Miles origin story. It's just a little nod to another kind of superhero breaking the color barrier.
And well, actually, as far as the digital and DVD release, there is actually a feature on other Easter eggs in the movie that you guys can check out. Anyone can wear the mask. I grew up with Peter Parker. With great power must also come great responsibility. It was such an important motto for comic books, and then for me personally. And then anyone can wear the mask. Talk about, for you, how that motto connects, how that is an important phrase, and I think one that is now like so out there in the mainstream already, like you hear people saying it. But talk about that.
It's just that idea that when you think about comic books, especially now that they've transitioned to comic book movies, that millions of people see these all over the world. They're huge. They have a lot of impact. And Rodney one day, we were recording, somebody said, this is like a myth. Spider-Man is it's like a version of a national myth. And these stories are all about heroism and sacrifice and bravery and heroes, and they're all the same things that people used to transmit to each other in the forms of mythic stories to teach lessons about, how you can live your life better, or how you can be a better person, or the things that go beyond just thinking about yourself. So the idea that only one kind of person can participate in a myth that is like spread through the whole culture just doesn't seem right anymore. It's just that those days are over, and it's when you have a culture that embraces everybody in its myth, that everybody feels like heroism, all these being greater than what you think you are, that those ideas are for everybody, then it's going to be a healthier culture, it's going to be a healthier art, people are going to get more out of it. So that idea of anyone can be behind the mask, to me, goes much deeper than just like anybody can be Spider-Man. And luckily we found a way that anybody could be Spider-Man with the Spider-Verse. So.
Peter was, a nerdy kid, and he could,
not that nerdy, okay.
He was early on.
Okay, pretty nerdy.
The guy had his nerdy phase. But, he was a nerdy kid, and he was somebody that I related to, and...
I thought you were talking about me, Peter.
Oh, were you a nerdy kid?
Yeah.
You were? What was your first exposure to Spider-Man, by the way? To original Peter Parker, and what was your first exposure to Miles, actually?
Yeah, my first exposure to original Peter Parker was probably cartoons on TV when I was really little. But the first comic book I ever bought with my own money was a Spider-Man comic book. So, and then Miles, that was 2011. I just, by that time, sporadically kind of looking at comics and picking them up. But I did hear about this new version of Spider-Man. I was like, how are they going to do that? And I got interested enough to check them out, and I thought it was really cool. And the, Brian Michael Bendis' writing is so, it's really sensitive. That was the interesting thing about what he did with Miles. It's a very sensitive kind of internal origin story, so that also grabbed me, and we tried to use as much of that as we could in the DNA of our movie.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating that only 8 years into the creation of this character, he is already so iconic, and I think it speaks to how much people needed them,
Yes, yeah, exactly. And for me, the incredible thing is, as different as Miles is on paper from Peter Parker, and as crazy as it should be that, there's a whole different Spider-Man, and it's still the same idea of Spider-Man. It's still with great power comes great responsibility. It's still, your own problems. You get these great powers, but you still have all your own problems, and you have to learn to deal with those, and still, be somebody who can help other people. It shows you how strong that idea is.
Right. And it kind of turns on its head the idea that we see in a lot of superhero stories of the chosen one. It's anyone can wear the mask.
Yeah. I mean, literally, with both Miles and Peter, they're just random people who happen to be bitten by this spider. You know, there's no great destiny or family lineage or anything like that.
Well, and along with that, of course, Miles Morales means so much to us in such a short amount of time, but also we have the character Spider-Gwen. You know, Gwen Stacy, a whole different take on the traditional origin and an unfortunate death of Gwen Stacy. Now we have her as a hero.
That's right.
When you were tackling Spider-Verse for the first time, what was your awareness of Gwen, and also were you kind of aware of like how important she is to so many fans?
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of like personal awareness. Like I wasn't reading every issue of Spider-Man. I was like, oh, cool costume. Yeah, definitely the importance of her. I mean, it's, you know, Miles kind of opened the floodgates to all these like alt versions of characters, and definitely like the most popular one after him, neck and neck probably, is Gwen. I mean, she's a super beloved character, and it was interesting. We kind of searched around for a while until we found a good hook for how she could hook into Miles's story in an emotional way, in a character way, and this whole thing we have of how she felt responsible for the death of her Peter Parker and her universe made it harder for her to want to connect with people was a good kind of hook for her in the story of her and Miles' relationship.
Yeah, and as a character, it's just like, it's exciting because her and Miles really shows that you don't have to be too precious about your original characters of Peter Parker. We can all be in the sandbox together.
And Peter's still in there, and I love this version of Peter. You know, you still love Peter Parker, so it's like everybody's still there. Just like more room for everybody else to play now.
And are you already finding, and I'm sure you are, that like little kids are coming up to you when they're like, this is the director of Into the Spider-Verse, and they're like, that, you know, that's Spider-Man, he looks like me, like, you know.
Yeah, that actually has happened. I mean, it sounds kind of, you know, if somebody had said that to me, I'd be like, really? Did somebody really say that? But that's happened multiple times. It's the response to the movie in that way, in the way that people have like emotionally, you know, kind of taken it and owned it for themselves, has been like way beyond I think any of us ever thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not. It sounds a little schmaltzy, but it's great. I mean,
it's fantastic. It's what you would dream about, and you would say, come on, it's a Spider-Man movie, nobody's going to do that.
I mean, and the fact that you're presenting this comic book-based story that then wins an Oscar and is also so full of heart and hope, as opposed to sort of the dark and gritty previous iterations of the superhero genre. I mean, you have to take away a certain amount of pride with the fact that, like, you're not working on something that's going to bring people down. You're working on something that's uplifting to people.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing feeling. I mean, but you know, we were talking before about, you know, famous people, like meeting famous people and stuff. But I mean, the number of people who have, you know, like emailed or DM'd me on Twitter and like gone like, you know, I just want to thank you for this movie. Last year was a really hard year for me and my family. We went to see this movie just on a lark, and it really meant something to us. And that's, once again, that's like a bunch of people. Last year must have been a really hard year for people because, you know, grabbing onto that life preserver kind of seemed like a big deal. So, yeah, it really, it's the, you know, whenever you create anything, I think whenever you put anything out in the world for other people to share, I think your ultimate dream is that it's going to help them in that way, or somehow touch, or you just wanted to connect to people. And so in that way, the response is completely off the charts.
Yeah, well, certainly had a lot of heart, certainly I think made a lot of us feel better, but it was also really darn funny. And I think out of everyone, probably the character that deserves the most, or got the most punchlines, was Spider-Ham. And as an old school comic book nerd, it's very odd to me that I can say the Oscar-winning movie starring Spider-Ham, Peter Porker. You know, when you're working with a comedian like John, and it's just all these incredible voice actors or actors who are doing voices. How much room do you have to allow for improvisation?
With somebody like him, as much as he wants, because John, he's a brilliant writer. I mean, he comes up with his jokes. So, you give him a script, and then you go, man, just go for it. Just like keep riffing. And I think he thinks I'm an idiot because when I was recording him, all I did was laugh like straight through because everything he was doing was hilarious. He would just like wind him up and let him go. Amazing, amazing.
Well, guys, like I said, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, it's out now on digital. It's coming soon, March 19th, on Blu-ray and DVD. As it happens, I've run out of questions, so do you guys have any questions? You want to ask some questions? Peter, you want to take some questions from these guys?
Some questions.
All right, here we go. Holt's got the microphone. He's the man of power.
Yes, so we've got question time. We've got Zach to your right. We've got Jane to your left. So what you want to do is raise your hand. We'll get to you as soon as we can. There's a lot of people here. Make sure you hold the mic to your mouth so we can all hear your great question, okay? Let's get started.
The lady with the blue hand.
Hi.
First of all, can I just give you something? That's okay.
Security! Of course. I think.
All right.
This guy I don't want to look at. And second of all, I'm the one who asked to treat you for lunch, and I'm here now, so that's
You were
so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get out. No, but
do you like me? Yes or no?
no, but okay. So I've been a fan of yours since Rise the Guardians. Back then, when it came out, it was my favorite movie, and then when Spider-Verse came out, it was my favorite movie. So
wow,
really big deal.
Good. Okay.
And since everything you make clearly turns into gold, do you have any future plans that you can maybe talk about?
I have future plans. Nothing solid, and nothing that if I talked about it would be like completely, just like, oh yeah, pipe dream kind of, But I definitely have future plans. I definitely have stuff that it's nothing like either of those two, but at the same time, I like to think that it has some of the spirit of those two. Whatever I brought to Spider-Verse, there were a lot of us who collaborated on it together, but that spirit of making it and what it says are things that I definitely want to carry forward into the future. So as soon as I know, you'll know that. So, and thank you.
I just want to say, give the man a breath here. He just won an Oscar. Give him a couple days to chill. But that's what happens when you make something that everybody loves. It's like, give me more now.
I have a question to your right. Hi.
Hi.
Here. Hi. First of all, I want to say thank you for the movie and congratulations on your Oscar.
Oh, thank you so much. That never gets old.
So for my question is I think this is probably one of our favorite surprises in the movie, but we're very happy with Olivia Octavius as a character.
All right.
And we're genuinely impressed, oh my god, it's a female version. I just want to ask if there's any process in having to make her into a female character about Doc Ock and incorporate her in the story, because I think she's really unique compared to the other Doc Ocks, and it's really, really, really cool, and we're just a huge fan, so we love her so much.
Oh, that's great. No, I love her too. We all love her. Bob Persichetti, one of my co-directors, just had the idea one day because we were trying to make him work as a man, and we were like, yeah, we got this version and we got this other version where he was kind of like the Big Lebowski. He was kind of like hippie, kind of burnt out version, and it was like, and then he said, what if she was a woman? And what if it was played by Catherine Hahn? I mean, literally the whole thing was like, boom, just like that. And it was like, everybody was like, oh, that sounds kind of incredible, and different universe. And then our production designer, Justin Thompson, when we committed to that, sent us some research on soft robotics, which is why her tentacles have that kind of plastic hydraulic look, and we were like, that's like that's the thing that on top of being cool, of course, the thing that really feels like an update and like a cool new version of the character was those new tentacles. So yeah, between those two things, we were really happy with it too. So thank you. Glad you liked it.
And now the idea of Doc Lebowski-Ock is like, you're welcome, internet fan fiction.
That's right. That's another universe.
Yeah.
He's out there somewhere.
Great. We got the next one here on your left. Hi. I really wanted to thank you for making this movie. I love Miles Morales.
You're welcome.
My question, really simple. Something I was just mulling around in my head. Is Nicolas Cage hard to work with?
No. Not at all.
Hard to work with.
Extremely easy. Extremely easy. No, he's super professional, a super nice guy. Couldn't have been easier. You'd give him an idea, and yeah, I'll try it like that. Immediately would bounce back with stuff and toss ideas. He's really cool. He's a big comic book fan. Totally got the character. Yeah, he was very nice. And first time we met him, we had to pitch him a movie in Las Vegas. So we met him there, and he had broken his ankle, and he had this cool ass cane with a skull on the top. And it was like, that's Cage.
I have a question to your back.
Hello. Yeah, as everybody else said, yes, thank you for the movie. Exactly. Don't want to like beat a horse.
You can beat that horse. That's okay.
I wanted to know, since you were talking about like the character design of Doc Ock, I was wondering how many different iterations you had to do for Miles and Burrito Peter as
Yeah, a lot. We have several great character designers working on any one character at a time, just to get different takes, and you end up kind of mixing and matching and finding some approach that you really like from one designer, but that maybe it needs a little more of what this other designer brings to it, and you end up this can go months. This can go a number of months to get to the right design. Miles took a really long time to get right because we wanted him to be kind of sweet and vulnerable, but also he had to seem like no, this kid could hold his own, and on these streets of Brooklyn, as you all know, and
the mean streets of Williamsburg. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So it can be a long process, and then once you get past the basic design, there's stuff you have to go into the model, and there's stuff like, well, okay, he's got an afro, but exactly what's the texture? How tight is it? How how loose? How just like there's so many thousands of questions about something, just like the hair. If you guys knew how many meetings we had on Miles' hair, you would like. And black people in their hair, that's what we do anyway. But that's like. It's an intense process, and just to try to get it as specific as possible.
Cool. All right, we've got one over here in your hard left. Over here.
Was it hard drawing the characters?
Wow, that's like The Shining. The hardest part is deciding what the characters are going to look like. Then you have to try lots of different ways of different designs for the characters until you figure out something that works, that's going to be simple and yet really memorable about these particular characters. That's right, that feels really right. And once you get that, it's a lot easier to draw them. And everybody working on the movie has been practicing a long time on drawing, so they're pretty good, really good. So it's all about practicing and then knowing what it is you're drawing, what it is your character is supposed to feel like and represent, and that makes it much easier.
Did that answer your question? Do you like that? Okay, you guys stick around because if you want to know more about drawing, we're gonna be getting to some fun drawing stuff soon. All right? Cool.
Here's a question on your right. Hi Peter, I have a question for you. How was it co-directing on an animated film? I know it's like common on normal films, but an animated film, how does that work?
Actually, it's pretty common on animated films too. And you kind of, it really, like my last movie, I was the lone director, but you still have a lot of help even when you're one director. People kind of almost fill in the roles of another director in some ways, but there's a lot of different phases of production going on at the same time in an animated film. So like one of us might be working with a storyboard artist in one sequence. Somebody else is off recording, Mahershala Ali at a recording studio. The same day, somebody else is working with the animators, and then we would all kind of get together in the editorial and the editing room to kind of like look at the latest cuts of sequences and go, that works, but that doesn't. We're going to have to try that again. That's good. That's great. We need to do more of that. So it's a thing where you're kind of, at least the way we did it, we were sort of going where we needed to go and do what we needed to do at any given time. And then each of us had like kind of specialty things that we did that the other two couldn't do, maybe quite as well. But it's something you have to know, just like I was saying about the characters, you have to know what story you're telling. You have to know what you're trying to say, otherwise everybody's going to try to make a different movie. You have to all be in agreement on the same creative vision, which luckily we had through, from the very first treatment that Phil Lord, who wrote our script, from the very first work that he did, it was the tone and the ideas were really clear, so we could always look at that and see which way we were going. Where things are going to be and how much or how little you can get away with. Big thing in animation boarding is always the eyes. There's always, a lot of times, your surrounding drawing can be as loose, almost ridiculously loose, as long as you can read those eyes, you know what the character is thinking. So that's kind of a good tip. Everything else is a little bit up for grabs. A lot of times people, when they're talking about drawing for animation, they think, or drawing storyboards, they think you have to be exactly on model, which is making the character look exactly every time you draw them like they look in the finished movie, but you don't have to. As long as you're communicating something that's the essence of the character, as long as you get a feel for for who that is, then usually you're going to be just fine when you're doing storyboards. Because it's the intention is a quick read. A lot of times you wouldn't even do any shading like this, which can be just kind of troublesome and hard to read when you're cutting things together. I'm just doing a horrible job here so you can see that I'm an idiot. But it's like, okay, what you can do when we storyboard, I've just learned this thing, so I'm opacity. I'm going to turn down this layer a bit. Okay, so I'm going to make a new layer on top of that. New layer. And then I'm going to turn back down. So what we do a lot of the time is it's really a super rough way of doing animation.
How many storyboards do you go through in a day? Like
Depends on if it's a good day or a bad day. I mean, depending on how simply you're working, you can do hundreds of these. But again, you have to know the story you're telling. You have to know what you're trying to communicate, what you're trying to basically what emotion or what idea that you're getting at. Otherwise, you're going to be going around in circles forever. So the biggest and best question you can ask at any given point, really at any given point during any part of the whole process is, what story am I telling? And that kind of tells you, that kind of is your guide. So let me see if I can get this to work, guys. So what you kind of do then is you can go between your layers. I can turn my opacity back up. So just looking over there, then he hears the noise. Oh my gosh, what's that? And then you go. So you kind of flicker back and forth between poses, right? It's just this kind of talking back and forth, which is a primitive kind of animation. And with storyboards, you can get more or less sophisticated with that. So sometimes you're watching sequences that look like they're practically animated. We've got board artists really good with that. I'm just like semi-good. I'm like, you get the idea. I'm kind of a lazy man storyboard artist. But somebody really good can really get a real flow going that you barely have to animate. I mean, yeah, it's just like, but it's just like the basics. It's just like how many of you guys know anything about gesture drawing? It's just like the more you can get to a simple basic shape, the more you can do. Because I can draw like still comes down to like, what sort of pose, what's your gesture? It's what are the simple flowing lines that I can do to make something that's gonna, go dark down there. So. One of these is an eraser. Procreate is kind of cool. I like it. I've never used it before. But it's, okay, that's not a great spider. You get the idea.
Well, you can. You can definitely get the idea. It's Gwen out there. How are you guys doing? You keeping along? Is everybody sketching out there, huh?
And then what, you want to try one more? I don't know.
Are we doing?
We have time?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
The whole idea was just like big shape. I haven't drawn these guys in a while. And then we would just move his head around on the big box. That's literally what we did. And it was like a little,
It's just a big block, yeah. And yet it is like so evocative of that Sienkiewicz. Yeah.
These are imagination.
Who has been your favorite to just like find yourself doodling or whatever? Like,
I think that just that basic Spider-Man body shape. Yeah. And that's like when you're working on one of these meetings, it's in your head all the time. So you're just unconsciously like you're sitting in editorial for hours, and there's a piece of paper, and you just draw those spiders. It keeps happening. I didn't really come out of cartoons, so I don't. I'm more like, more about drawing people than cartoon characters necessarily. So his proportions always like mess with me a little bit. But basically, stumpy body. So you see, it's once again, it's all, once you get the basic shapes of these guys, even somebody like, I can do a problem. I mean, it's like...
I feel like as you're doing this, we need the elephant sound.
And him, I kind of cheat with his eyes. I just like, okay, just do some scary looking eyes there. Yeah, I know that's a problem. He's got it. Okay. Prowler, his body design, we made him kind of, Uncle Aaron is kind of tall and lanky, and we wanted that for the character as well, just to give him a distinctive kind of look that wasn't like a generic superhero or super bad guy body. So, he looks a little like an NBA player or something like that. Just wanted to give him something really distinctive and that felt real, And his costume ended up getting simplified from what we had originally. But things like the boots and the claws, those were always a part of the design, and they're kind of extrapolated from his classic design from the comics. a movie that, you're looking at a bunch of storyboards. For one panel, that would give you what you needed. I found out about storyboarding, and I had always drawn like all my life. For a long time, I thought I was going to be a comic book artist or some kind of illustrator. But when I fell in love with movies, I discovered there's a way I could take that skill and apply it to movie making in a way that I could actually make a living. So I kind of like signed on with an agency that repped people for commercials, but they were moving into repping people for movies as well. So after a year of doing commercials, they got me a movie. It was a movie that never came out, but it was still a movie, and it got made. And after I finished that job, I had a fat book of samples, and that got me another job. And I think that next job was, I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street 5. It was one of those movies. And another couple of jobs, I lucked into getting into the union. And then that like opened the doors to working on all these big movies with a lot of big directors, and I was learning so much about filmmaking, and it kind of became my film school. So it was this weird kind of sideways, and I still had the dream of I'm going to become a director, I'm going to do it, but I kind of took the long way, which was cool because, hey, I was paying my rent, and I had kids, and we were, and I got to work with a lot of my idols, but man, if they'd had iPhones and like, if I could get Final Cut Pro back then, that came with a computer, man. What he was getting at. No, but that was, it was just another thing, and we felt like we had enough leeway that, I think Peter B. Parker could be the Peter of our dimension. Maybe he's like another dimension that's close enough. I don't know. But it's definitely, there's not much in the original comics to me that says that Peter Parker wouldn't be Jewish. So why not?
I'm going to break the rules.
Really appreciate it. Don't forget photos, videos you took.